Welcome back to Oppidan Talks, mentoring masterclasses from the very best in the business. Oppidan Education brings you life stories for the school run. Today's guest. So after Eton, Oxford and 5 years of stockbroking and even a stint in teaching, Johnnie Boden eventually chose a less conventional route, using a small and unexpected inheritance to start up a mail order clothes business, Boden. The rest is history, as Johnnie took the UK and the USA by storm, building the business admired by so many. Approaching its 30th year, we are delighted and grateful to have Johnnie with us here today to share his story. Thank you for joining us, Johnnie.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Walter.
Johnnie, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to start right back at the beginning.
Yeah.
We ask this question to every one of our guests. What were your school reports like?
Court jester, terrible show-off, disruptive, needy, but quite good fun, but not far more interested in telling a joke than concentrating.
Lovely, nice summary.
Beautifully put. So was school a happy, positive experience?
Yes, I was. I had a half sister who married when I was young, so I didn't really have much of a. My family, my home life wasn't a barrel of laughs, although which made me very keen to make friends. I love school. I love almost every aspect of prep school and public school. I really enjoyed it, made some very good friends, and I like the work, I like the sport. I mean, very annoying actually. I was really loved it.
By anyone's standard, prep school, Eton and then Oxford, I would say a fairly sort of formal education, traditional route. Yeah. You've spoken lots about your own education and how that's played a part in what you do.
Yes.
Do you think there's an argument possibly for those types of schools leading children, whether they think it or not, down more formal roles of business?
Walter, do you mean should the schools be giving more vocational training?
I wonder whether your contemporaries thought that what you did was very different.
Yes, I do think that I chose an unconventional career for the education I had in certain respects, but perhaps the school has changed now. I think the most important thing is that you have to do something that you really enjoy and do something you're really good at. And I'm not convinced that the formal education necessarily brings that out of you.
Can I ask, in your case, was it obvious from an early age that you wanted to be your own boss?
I think one of the key ingredients of being an entrepreneur or being your own boss is confidence. And I was always quite a confident person in certain respects. I was quite insecure in others, but although I didn't realize at the time, I think, yes, I did have what it takes. Although I think actually everybody has it in them. But I think I was always going to struggle with a very structured organization.
It must have been hard those early years. We're going to come in a second to how that started, but those early years when friends of yours were working in the city, making probably quite lots of money, and you were starting out on something totally different, but perhaps more exciting. Was there ever a temptation to sack it all in and go and join the bigger law firms or something?
I think because I was so spectacularly bad at what I was doing in the city, and I really was useless, and I didn't really enjoy it very much, although my work colleagues were lovely, and my huge respect for the kind people who gave me a job because I was so bad at it. But it was such an unhappy experience in most ways that actually finding something I really enjoyed was just utterly wonderful. And even though it was extremely unremunerative for about 10 years, I never for a moment thought, oh, I made a mistake. I've never wanted to go back to that world. And there's some things I miss. The money was obviously a worry, but actually, if you're doing something you really enjoy, you can cope with the lack of money because it's, as I said, the alternative was not much fun.
So can I ask, looking back, did those early jobs, those pre-career jobs, what value did they have?
Absolutely zero, other than the fact that they made me they helped me. It was so unhappy, and as I said, in most respects, although there were some positive things, but it made me realise that I had to do my own thing.
Perfect. Well, Johnny, take us then back to the start. I'm sure this is a question you're bored of answering, but what was the seed? What's the story behind this?
The story was that I actually was quite a creative person, but I didn't really know it. And as a child, I was always interested in fashion. I used to was obsessed with my mother's friend's shoes. I loved my wall. And my bedroom, my room at Eton was covered in photographs of Vogue images. I even rather proud had a photograph of Mark Phillips and Princess Anne, which came down quite quickly. But I loved fashion photography, art. But my father didn't think that was a hobby rather than a career. So I always had that in me, and I got a job. I was a writer for the school magazine, The Chronicle, and I got offered a job as male fashion editor of the teenage edition of Harper's and Queen. And I loved that. So it was always there, but I didn't ever feel there was a career there because I didn't really have the training or the confidence. And as I said, because I was so unhappy in the city, I knew I had to do something else. And I tried a bit of teaching, and I loved that, but the money was terrible. I remember I taught at Hill House in Chelsea, and I spent my monthly paycheck in about 3 days. I thought, I'm too greedy, I can't. But then I ran a pub. I always wanted to run a pub, and I didn't really enjoy that because I didn't like dealing with drunk people whilst being sober. And then I met Sophie, who's now my wife, and Sophie is pretty punchy, and after a few months she pointed out to me that I was a complete failure, and I said, well, that's fair comment. She said, you have the most incredible education that the world can give you, and you can't even work out what you want to do. And I said, well, I've got this idea of selling clothes by mail order, which is an idea that was something I'd seen in America, and I worked in America, and I thought this could catch on. And at that stage, in 1990, there was only one mail order clothing company selling half decent clothes in the UK, which was Next. But I thought there was, rather nice to be able to buy clothes without having to leave your desk. I thought I'll give it a go. And it was only at that stage, I thought I haven't really got what it takes. And I then spent a lot of time speaking to people who set up their own business. And I realized that actually, you didn't have to be Superman. And I gave it a go. And it was, I never looked back from a fulfillment point of view, but it was very, very hard for quite a long time to make money and to get stability into the business.
Can you remember the first piece of clothing you sold?
Yes, I had my first products were menswear, all menswear, and I think it was either corduroy trousers or moleskin trousers. I remember, those first orders. It was just so wonderful to feel that I'd, designed a product, not terribly exciting, but still designed it all the same, and actually somebody else wanted to buy it. Miracle.
I've heard famous stories of a bag as well. Was there a bag?
There was a bag, well remembered, Henry. So there was a moleskin trousers, corduroy trousers, white boxer shorts, which were very hard to get in those days, rather dodgy belts, star tie, it's so embarrassing to think about now, an overnight bag, which was quite successful, and a Lansall roll neck jumper and a twill shirt. So there's one more, I'll think of it in a minute. No, it was really, really random, but actually just the sensation of taking orders. I'm a sort of natural tradesman. I discovered that I've got 20% Jewish blood, and that all sort of came out. The joy of taking an order was unbeatable, really.
And I think almost anyone you speak to now, they'll say that they, at one point in their life, owned a pair of Mini Boden shorts.
Yes.
So how did Mini Boden came about?
So Mini Boden came about because it was like there's a friend of mine had a children's wear business, and she's got a bit fed up with it, and she said, "Would you like to buy it?" And I didn't really think twice, and I thought, well, then each of our customers are my lights. Can you see me still?
Mm.
All of my customers, most of our customers had children, and we launched in 1996, and it was a huge success from the word go. Actually, you forget now. In those days, it was quite hard to buy clothes that were made of natural materials. When I set up Boden in 1992, it was almost impossible to buy 100% cotton shirts. It's now there's so much choice, and we have a lot of competition. But in those days, it was much easier in many ways.
And can I ask, it's probably easier with hindsight, but was there a moment when you thought, yes, this is a success?
There were two moments I remember very vividly. So in the early years, don't get the violins out, but I was working probably 18-hour days, and I would be on the telephones literally from 9 a.m. to, oh crikey, I'm going to have to, would you rather you saw me in the dark, or should I go and do a mad dance?
We can actually still see you quite well.
Okay, fine.
You're clear enough, yeah.
So I used to answer the telephone all day, and then at 1:30 every day I would check every parcel, because there was always a risk. Although Barry, our warehouseman then, is still working for me, and he denies this. There was always a risk there would be a packing error, which means that he would put the wrong item in the box, and there was no barcodes in those days. So I did a manual check of everything, because nothing more annoying than getting what we call a picking error. I would also check that the parcel, the label on the parcel was the same as the label on the invoice. Again, you don't want to get somebody else's order. And I used to get to know a lot of customers quite well, because they'd ring up and I'd speak to them. This is pre-internet. And also I had some very kind friends who, like your father, who would place what I call, or mother, sympathy orders. And so I recognized quite a few names. And it was one day, I think it was 1996, when I didn't recognize any of the names of the people who were sending out maybe 200 parcels that day. And I thought, ooh, this is a business now. And then the other thing was, in about 10 years later, when we launched in America, and America is a huge country, and until you go to the suburbs of a city like Boston or Washington, you don't really get the feel of the scale. And there are hundreds of suburbs like Battersea or Richmond in these big cities. The scale of everything in America is, and I remember going to a focus group in some, and I was behind the screen. They didn't know I was there, and I heard these American women talking so positively about the brand. I thought, oh, this is quite good actually, because there are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of women like them out there, and if I can find them, this could be quite a bit bigger.
And am I right in saying there was a funny story about how you launched in America, how you broke America? Something to do with an April Fool's Day marketing?
We launched in America in a very, it's quite a lot of people said to me, you can't go to America. It's a graveyard of British retailers, and you have to sort of challenge these statements. And I looked into it, and I realized the real problem was a lot of businesses go into these new markets, and they hire really expensive people, and they hire swanky offices in Manhattan, take on these offices. And I just thought, well, we didn't have to do it that way. And we did it in quite a dirty way, but it was very, very successful. But then we had this bizarre April Fool's prank, which got onto NBC television, and it was a man's skirt, and we put up on our website a photograph of a man. I mean, this is sort of pre-woke days when men really didn't wear skirts, and there was this guy wearing a skirt, and linen skirt. We photographed it, and if you clicked on it, it said April Fool, and it was voted the best April Fool's effort on NBC television, watched by 20 million people. And it cost us, 50 quid.
Guerrilla marketing or something along those lines.
I mean, if you have any other good ideas, then let me know.
I think there's nothing, for those who are listening and not watching this, there is nothing more indicative than a hardworking boss than sitting in the dark in a big empty office while the rest of the world works from home. The ultimate 30-year business experience. There must have been problems along the way too. What, I suppose, rather than what the problems are, what's been your key coping mechanism, perhaps, for dealing with big problems?
At the risk of bursting into tears, I think ultimately it's having a fantastic partner. I mean, fantastic partner both at work and at home. If you've got somebody that you work with who you can bounce ideas off and who can lift you when you're down and vice versa, that's worth an awful lot. And you look at the, I think you look at the most successful businesses, there's pretty much always there's a sort of Laurel and Hardy at the top. And also having a fantastic wife in my case, because it is quite difficult and lonely at times. And we all feel rubbish, and I don't think I could have done it when I was defrauded. I've had 2 major burglaries. We nearly lost our house. There's a lot of quite difficult things which were made tolerable by the support of a wonderful woman and family actually, who have encouraged me to keep going. I think that's a sort of rather sentimental, but the true answer. There are other aspects to it. I think the number one thing, I think entrepreneurs tend to be quite selfish and believe their own PR too much, but I do think it's very important to listen to your customers. People, I've got 3 daughters who continually tell me I'm a complete arsehole. And actually that's trained me to listen to people at work who say, you've really got this wrong. And you have to, judging the moment when you should listen and when you should ignore, that's the hard bit, but you have to be able to do both.
Important advice, Johnny. Once the retail business or retail sector comes out of the pandemic and continues to thrive again, what's left to achieve with Boden?
Well, people always say to me, oh God, why don't you just sell up and just... The problem is that if you're quite an energetic person, actually, spending the rest of my life on a golf course or not that I have a yacht, but sort of the metaphorical yacht and the bottles of champagne I basically think that I look at people like Rupert Murdoch and I think actually as long as you're still adding value and enjoying it, you should carry on. From a business point of view, we still have a lot to achieve in America. And in America, we have pretty low awareness. We have 9% awareness, or it might be maybe just over 10 in America now. In the UK, it's 60. So if we can get more awareness in America, that's still a big market. There are other markets, but we'll make the opportunities, even if it's not totally clear. I mean, it's so difficult at the moment. It'll take us a year, maybe more, maybe 2 years to get back to where we were. So now's not the time to give up, really.
Quite right. And before we finish and take you to our Biscuit Face game, we've got a quick fire round for you, just some very simple sort of desert island questions. And I'll start. Your most treasured possession?
My dog. I have a dog who everybody hates apart from me. I was brought up with dogs and horses, and I find them very, very therapeutic. And sound like Prince Charles, I talk to them. They calm me down. They're unfailingly affectionate. They give me a lot of pleasure. and I think I would be even madder without my dog, particularly, who is very, very annoying, but I love her.
My question then, at the risk of undue plugs, which new fashion business do you respect? Do you think is going to go places?
We're not a couture. We're not obsessed with couture brands. The brands I like are, little people that I meet who come up with quite interesting ideas. Golly, Walter, you've really put me on the spot. There's a couple of guys who set up a company called Fairfax and Favour, and they're one of the few entrepreneurs who've listened to me. A lot of people come and ask me for advice, and nobody ever listens to a word I say, but they have listened, actually. And dare I say it, they're doing quite well as a result.
How satisfying to see them doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Most admired individual?
I have to say Sophie, my wife, because she's so much wiser than I am. And she's a much stronger and better person than me, really.
The clothing item you can't live without?
Obviously, I have to say Boden, because I do care about and love our products. I've got a rather double-breasted wax jacket with a fur collar that's a bit sort of London to Brighton rally, which I wear all the time and which I've never seen without in the country. It's really old and some may think quite revolting, but I absolutely love it.
Very good. And I think last but not least, what bit of advice you can give?
Golly, there's so much, and it's sometimes I wish the question I ask other people. I think I've got 3 or 4 things actually. I think the number one thing for all of us is to be yourself. Actually, you can't. We all have difficult moments, but just remembering who you are, what you're good at, what motivates you, is what's really going to make you happy. And if you forget that, if you start to try to be something you're not, it doesn't really work. Do you mind if I've got 3 or 4? Is that okay?
That's okay.
I think listening is the one that I've mentioned already. I do think that in my case, listening to customers, customers tell you things you quite often don't want to hear, and it's bloody annoying, but you do have to listen to them, listen to your staff. 3 more things. I think hiring really, really good people, 9 out of 10 people are a hell of a lot better than 7 out of 10 people. 9 out of 10 people are much harder to find, but once you've found them, they can make a big difference. And it's very, very, actually confronting the 7 out of 10 people is not very easy because they're really nice. And, there's been a lot of moments in my career where people haven't been quite good enough and I've sort of persevered. And I don't want to say too much, but I do think hiring really good people is terribly important. And the last thing I will say, there was a friend of mine who's created a rather good flow chart, which is called Don't Be a Dick. Actually, just we all can behave. We're all capable of behaving very badly at times. And just when you behave badly, you kind of know it. And just when somebody points it out to you, just accept it and move on.
Very good advice. Thank you very much, Johnny. And before we play Biscuit Face, I think having watched you in the darkness, we may need the lights on.
I'll go and do my moon dance.
We'll let you do your waving. For those who are listening, Johnny's been so sustainable that he'll turn off to his office when he's halfway through his meetings.
Okay.
And I'll see him resplendent on his chair with bright orange hair. And what biscuit have you got?
Bright orange face as well.
No, not bright orange face. Some very trendy glasses. Have you got some biscuits with you?
So I forgot, although you warned me. So I've been to we've got a canteen, which we made in the office, but I said, let's open the canteen to try and get people involved, but it hasn't worked. It's a rather lovely Brazilian girl in the canteen who sold me some nut butter cookies for Gato. They're vegan, gluten and dairy free, everything that the younger generation needs.
Everything you'd want from a biscuit. Well, if you've ever played the After 8 game, this is very similar. You're probably going to, from the forehead to the mouth without using your hands.
Not forehead.
From the forehead, yeah.
Forehead.
Yes,
Forehead.
thank you. Very good, very good. You sound like somebody else I know. From the forehead to the mouth.
Yeah.
No hands used. You've got up to 30 seconds, and
I'm gonna get my time right.
and make as much noise as you dare.
But just remember, Johnny, you can do it more than once. All right, and your time starts now. Good luck.
Sorry, I can't swear, can I? Oh, sorry.
Good forehead maneuver there. Down onto the nose and slipped away on the left-hand cheek. Attempt number 3. Off he goes. Right-hand cheek.
He's gone small but mobile.
Wouldn't it be fun to commentate on Biscuit Face, wouldn't it? Here he goes. It's a good traction.
Oh.
Is there one more attempt? There may well be one more attempt. Here it goes.
It's the frown that I'm most enjoying. Oh, he's so close. Valiant effort. Johnny, the good news is you're going into a column in great company with people like Sebastian Folkes and Gianfranco Zola.
Anybody got it?
The record holder is a man called Alex Wright. He owns a very good company called Dashwater, and he did it in 6 seconds. So he is the man. He had a hobnob and a beard, and you had neither of those. So
I'm sorry, I haven't practiced. I'm sorry about the language as well.
All right, we'll plug it out.
We'll plug it out. Johnny, we are very, very grateful. Thank you for joining us on Oppidan Talks. We wish you and
it was a great idea, by the way, and good luck in everything you do.
Thank you, Johnny. Okay. We're pausing there. Goodbye.